All right. Hey, everyone. Tommy here, and I am joined by Mr. James Sprague. If you've ever met James, you would know it because he strikes up a conversation with anyone. He's one of the most infectious people I've ever met. He's a great person to have a conversation with. He makes friends wherever he goes, and he's joining us now on the pod. James, how you doing, man?
I'm doing awesome, Tommy. Thank you so much for having me. Those were some very kind words, and excited to share my real life experiences and just chat it up with you. It's been a minute since I've been on a podcast, and last one I was on was Savon. So this will be a nice, come down break from it.
Oh yeah. You know, we're not going to ask you any weird out of the left field questions, but it's all good.
Let's go. I'm here for whatever.
Yeah, heck yeah. For people that may not be familiar, you're a two-time games athlete in the teenage division. You finished top 5 twice in 14, 15, and 16, 17, trying to make your transition into the individual competition. But how did you find CrossFit, and what was your original athletic background before you dove in full headlong into the sport of fitness?
For sure. I found CrossFit through my dad, who was a games athlete before myself. And actually, when I found the sport, I was overweight and really didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And I think that's a common thing along a lot of middle schoolers and kids that age, is not knowing what your path's going to be, feeling all this pressure to start figuring it out at such a young age, and seeing some kids find all their success in sports and not having that. And so watching my dad succeed really just kind of drove me into the gym to start, playing with CrossFit, touching a barbell a little bit, learning things through him, and just kind of experiencing the full CrossFit picture. And got involved with a really good box who just took me in with open arms, and just kind of never turned back from there. In 2017, making it for the first time after just about a year of experience was absolutely crazy. And that's when I found my addiction.
Yeah, heck yeah. Do you feel like, since your dad had qualified before, and, it was something that he was into and then you found as well, how did that affect your relationship? Was it from a net positive? Was it a competitive thing? How did that play out between you two?
For sure. So at first it was just me being I want to try and get him. I want to get him in these lifts. I want to beat him in these workouts. Always trying to beat him, and I would always fall short. And that was a very normal thing, because he was a games athlete as a master. He was an absolute stud. And I remember back in the day, he deadlifted 500 pounds for 5 reps, absolutely insane. And he's still doing that today, still crushing it. And so it started out as just this drive to beat my dad. And it was our bonding thing. We talk about it all the time. We get to go share those 2-3 hours at the gym together. And it just brought us that much closer. And it's still one of those things today that we talk every day about, hey, what was your workout? How did it go? Do you need help with anything? And the role from him helping me has kind of transferred over to I get to help him with some things. He helps me with mindset, just keeps me positive. I get to help him with whatever he needs. And I think he's more or less shifting out of the competition side and just having fun with it now, which I'm happy for him, because he's been in it for 12 years. So
yeah. I was gonna say, if anyone's unfamiliar, and correct me if I'm wrong, your dad's a 2-time qualifier at 50 to 54, 55 plus. Pat Sprague, right?
3-time.
Okay, yeah. All right. So I missed one.
He was back in the OG days.
Oh yeah, totally. And so you mentioned a little bit about mindset, because I think one thing that stands out immediately for anyone that's met you is you have this innate ability to, be able to strike up a conversation with someone, become fast friends, and really kind of, reach out and start to talk to people. I think that's a very valuable skill, to be able to talk to people. And I'm curious where that comes from. And is that something that maybe you developed through CrossFit and through the social nature of what goes down in the box?
I think it's more my relationship with God has really I've strengthened that a lot over the past few years. And, that's really made me just want to invest in people and make sure I have a happy heart and I'm spreading positivity in the world, and just making sure that, for me, it's all the gifts that I have in this sport are because of God. And so I believe that for myself, it's just hey, I'm very blessed that I get to do this thing, and I get to show up to the gym every day and almost make it a full-time career. And I would say that CrossFit and fitness are just a mood enhancer. Anyone knows who has a good workout, you're going to walk out of the gym feeling way better than you walked into the gym. I never walk out of the gym feeling worse. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's never a day where I'm like, dang, well, like physically worse sometimes, like if you're beat up, but
yeah.
emotionally and mentally, like it's that best hour of your day, people like to say that,
Mm-hmm.
just it makes you better. And so I find that a lot of my relationships have been gym related, whether it's through my business and coaching, whether it's just through meeting people at the gym every day, whether it's my teammates here in Florida. Most of my relationships have been made through CrossFit. And, I don't think you'll ever really find people in this CrossFit space who don't want to help others succeed too. So it's like that, it's been amazing to be part of this community.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, being a part of the community at the highest level obviously has its benefits. You get to go to the
Yeah.
games as a teenager. When did that transition into like, hey, I'm interested in this too, I'm going to try and compete in this, and hey, maybe I can actually compete at the highest level? When did that switch flip for you? Was it early on? Was it immediate? Was it something that like, as you developed, it was like, oh, okay, maybe this is something I should pursue?
Yeah. So after my teenage career was over, after my last year at the games in the 16-17 division, I actually thought I was going to take another route. I thought I was going to go row in college for a high level college rowing team. And I thought that was going to be the next 4 to 5 years of my life. And I didn't think I'd be doing any CrossFit competitions, maybe still like doing pieces here and there, but rowing training is like 4 to 6 hours a day. So I wouldn't have time for other stuff that was like more CrossFit related. So I was willing to put that on a back burner until I actually got cut from the rowing team because my 2K time wasn't fast enough. As like in CrossFit, like my 2K time would be great. But like those rowers are insane. So that was like my window of opportunity to choose, hey, what are you going to do next? And I love CrossFit and I continue to love it more and more every day. And so right then and there, I chose like, hey, you have this amazing aerobic base built from rowing training. Why not just invest in getting strong over these next couple of years and see what you can do? And, then making semifinals last year, I didn't know if I was even going to do the season last year because my knees were so achy. And actually I had one of my coaches telling me, hey, you should take a year off, just invest in your knee health. And now I can like surely say like my knees are almost 100% all the time, which is great. And it's been my biggest limiter as of last year. And now that I'm not dealing with it this year, I'm excited to see where that can take me.
Yeah, and so I'm curious about last year too, because we got to chat and meet and hang out a little bit at WCC. Yeah. When you started the season, was that necessarily the goal, maybe to make semifinals, or just maybe see and test the waters about where your fitness is? And once you did make semifinals, how were you able to kind of readjust the target and try to place some realistic goals?
For sure, yeah. My goal from starting like the open was just like, hey, don't make your knee worse. And then as it kind of continued and I went to the quarters, I was like, hey, I'm putting up some great scores. Like I had a top 10 in the open, which gave me a big sense of confidence. And then kind of just, as I went on with the season, I started saying, why not me? And that's something I've been saying a lot to myself lately is why not me? Why would I count myself out? I think I did a lot of counting myself out last year, and being at a young age, being like, hey, like you have so much time, like don't try and rush it. But now it's, hey, I belong with these big guys. Like I may be younger, but I got all the fight in the world and I'm here to play CrossFit. So that definitely mindset changed as the season went on. And this season, especially at Waterpalooza, was the biggest shift for me of just feeling like I belong and I can actually not just compete with them, but actually beat them.
Yeah, and I want to touch on Waterpalooza in a little bit, but
yeah, for sure.
But before we get into that, I want to talk with WCC. You had a couple of seesaw performances. Obviously, you crushed the ruck run. It's something that generally speaking you do really well in. But then you had a tough go, I believe, at the legless. I think you got a pretty nasty no rep. And how are you able to manage that to be able to fight back from a no rep like that and then turn around and still not let it poison an event like the ruck that you're going to excel at?
Yeah, I think it comes down to understanding that if you let that negativity carry on throughout the weekend, it's going to affect everything else. So like acknowledge that it happened, reflect on it later. But like as a competitor, if you're a boxer and you get hit with a hard punch, you're not just be like, ow, I got hit with a hard punch. You're going to say, hey, I got hit. Let's strike back harder. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think there's no competitor that does absolutely well that's going to reflect on negatives the whole time. Yeah. Like when you have a bad performance, it's about how you treat it, how you handle it, and how you move on from it. You cannot sit and just soak and sop in your sadness. Like no high level competitor is going to have long-term success doing that. You're going to burn out. You're always going to be hard on yourself. So, it comes down to just playing your strengths and in training, making sure you're training weaknesses to make sure you negate those negative finishes.
And you did a great job of that. After that 28th and legless, you got a tough no rep. You came back and had your 3 best finishes of the weekend. And honestly, if I'm being honest, that's what caught my attention, that bounce back. And so you finished 22nd, a solid finish at a highly competitive WCC regional. What was your takeaway from that weekend, and what were the lessons that you then parlayed forward to this year?
For sure. Biggest lesson I took away from West Coast was the experience, just getting that under my belt of like feeling out what a higher level competition feels like. Being at the semifinal was much more nerve-wracking than even being at the games as a teen. Like just a different field, like looking at all the dudes with huge beards and being like, dang, they're so much older than me. And now I can grow a beard myself, so I feel a little bit more included.
It looks good, by the way.
Hey, thank you so much. And the biggest takeaway was just understanding like, hey, like, let's see where we're at. Let's see what's really crushing us. And there was a lot programmed that weekend that I looked at on paper. I was like, dang, that's not the best thing for me, but I gave it my best in everything I did. And I learned a lot about competition composure versus training composure. I'm a guy who does very well in training, but then back then when I'd come to competition, it was like a totally different James who would fall apart. And so I'm carrying over into every competition I do now. Like, how do I do training and mimic that in competition?
Yeah. And then I'm curious, because you did mention the difference between, being on the floor at WCC outside of the beards that everybody was rocking. And
Yes,
I'm
sir.
curious, because I think a lot of people, see, hey, like, you're at the games, as a teenager, there's still some very high level competitors, as far as like feel and some of the mechanics of what's different about being a competitor in those scenarios, what were the things that really stood out to you? Was it the pressure? Was it the behind the scenes stuff? Because I think a lot of people don't know the ins and outs of being an athlete at these competitions, what it's like in the back room, corrals, being staged for events. And I'm curious, what really was the contrast between the two?
The contrast was being next to people I thought were famous and like legends in the sport, and realizing like, oh, I'm going against them now. Well, in the teens, it was like, hey, like, I know like the top dog, like Dallin, he was like my best friend. So it wasn't nerve wracking. But then when I was going up against a bunch of dudes I've seen on TV and seen with past gold medals and everything like that, it was like, whoa, I'm back here with them. Like, I have to show up. And I put this extra pressure on myself that like, I do very well when I have fun and I enjoy myself and like just do what I do in training. Like in training, I show up every day. I have a good time. I have laughs. I learn. But in competition, if I do something besides that, which I did at West Coast, I won't perform as well. So yeah.
And so you should come to Waterpalooza this year. The season's just kicking off now. Well, we can touch on 22.1 in just a sec, but you go to Waterpalooza. It's a big tune-up for the season, high-level competition, high-level programming, and you finished 15th. You do really well, and even you finished ahead of guys like Alex Vigneault, who are top 10 at the games. What was different about that event for you that allowed you to increase your performance and maybe beat out some high-level guys?
For sure. First of all, it was being completely healthy coming in. Well, I wouldn't say completely healthy. I came in, I had COVID 2 weeks before, so that was kind of a scare. And then like I came into that comp not feeling 100%. But as the weekend continued, I said like, hey, you know what? Like there's other guys that dealt with this same thing. Like just go out and do what you can. So being mostly healthy, like joint wise, knees, elbows, wrists, like nothing hurt. Except I had one kind of scare event in Friday morning. I took a last place in the MIA complex there. And I was really excited to actually do well and finish that thing. But I actually didn't really attempt to even do it because my knees were so shocked and then the pain went away. But so I was actually disappointed with the 15th overall because I knew that if I actually got to do that complex how I wanted, it would have been like a half pack finish. I knew I could have finished that. So I was actually really looking to be in top 10 at Waterpalooza.
Oh,
And yeah, so I know that like that wasn't my true self yet. I know that it may look like 15th, great. I'm still not content with it. I didn't hit my goal, but I'm still happy nonetheless that I took away little wins from the weekend. And yeah, that was the biggest thing that contributed toward me doing better was letting loose, having fun, and having the experience under my belt from being with the big boys before at a semi.
yeah. I think I could have told you were going to have fun because when we ran into each other in Whole Foods, I feel like I watched you strike up a conversation with like 8 different shoppers in the time it took me and Benji to your agents to exchange contact information, which is a skill in of itself, and I have to commend you for that. But you have a strong finish at Waterpalooza, even with that complex kind of snafu. But there are some changes to training and where you're at. I feel like in the few recent months we've heard more about this Florida crew down in Naples, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Can you give us a little rundown of what the setup is there and what that's been like with this kind of new training camp that's formed, down in Florida?
100%. So there is 5 of us here now that have officially moved down, and we're working on getting a couple more down here from the Brute Squad. And so basically, it's been in the works for about the last year now. And so all of us moved from a little bit different places and backgrounds and different ages, like Cary being the youngest, Phil Toon being the oldest. Like Emma is still technically in her senior year of high school, and Phil's been graduated from college for a couple years. So it's like the age demographics much different. I came from Seattle, Washington. So I went basically northwest to southeast, like very far point. And it was kind of my first step away from living at home. And so it was like, hey, like, what's the farthest we can get away from home? I did that. But I love home. I miss parts about it. I miss family. I miss kind of owning my own gym and having my clientele back there with my company. I miss my friends. But this is an investment in my career. So I look at it as I moved for my job, but I also don't look at CrossFit as my job because I have so much fun with it. So I'm like, it's like, hey, I moved to do what I love. Like I moved to do what I love and get better at doing what I love. Mm-hmm. And so, being here, I live with another guy who we're training with. His name's Ethan Tate. He'll be at the semifinals this year. He's a stud. He actually lived where Dallin's at in Utah. And so it's me, Ethan, Dallin, Emma, and Phil right now. Mm-hmm. And then Fisha Goffey, hopefully, is going to get down here. That's the goal. And then another upcoming teen, David Bradley, we're trying to get him down here too.
Yeah, he was one of my young guns to watch this year because of
I saw that list.
Yeah, because he did well at the games last year, and his strength was up there for a teenager. And and I'm genuinely curious because I think this is, and I want to get your perspective on this.
Yep.
On the men's side, we have yet to see a teenage athlete make an immediate jump over to the individual side. On the outside looking in, for me, it always seems to be not just the top end strength, but the ability to recover and repeat high level performances with heavier loads with the barbell and those types of strength performances. And I'm curious if that's kind of where you felt some of the deficiencies were, or where do you see the most development possibilities for the male athletes trying to make that jump?
Yeah, it's, we see the female athletes like 16 and 17-year-olds, Emma Lawson being the youngest, like 16 years old, going and crushing it at these huge competitions. Then there's Cary and Mal, who were 17 and went to the games. So as a guy, you see that like a young guy in the sport like myself, and you're like, I'm 19 and I still haven't made it. Like, what am I doing wrong? But like you said, like statistically, there have been no guys like George Sterner, I think was 19 or 20 in 2019. But he's like the youngest to break through. So I doubt we will see a 17 or 18-year-old ever in the games field if it stays at 40 and the system is structured. Yeah. I think the biggest thing is, like for me, it was just getting strong. For a lot of other teams, it's the engine building and moving the heavy loads under fatigue, like you said, because that comes up a lot at semis. Like at the West Coast, there was three events where you had to move heavy load under fatigue, or 3 or 4 of them. And Waterpalooza, like more than 3/4 of them had heavy load under fatigue. So it's like, if you can't manage that, you're never really going to make the breakthrough. So, but how I program for the teens I program for, I really just make sure they're doing a lot of accessory work, lots of unilateral stuff, making sure they're just getting strong on a linear progression. And if we're not doing that, it's like, hey, their development may be a little bit slower. But there's no true answer because everyone needs something a little different. Like,
Yeah.
Dallin didn't have that problem. I did. Dallin had the running and swimming and rowing. Well, mine was, hey, I can't move a barbell. This 200-pound sandbag's freaking me up. So everyone's different.
Yeah, no, totally. You mentioned Dallin, I think everyone can relate to being able to train in with someone that's, in a similar mindset, similar like level, and is just a good person and a good friend. Like everyone enjoys that bro sesh or that that homegirl sesh if you're training with your girlfriends. And I'm curious what that's been like for you. And now that you guys are both in Florida, how you guys have benefited from that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I tell everyone this, like Dallin's one of my best friends. Like he's a guy I look up to, kind of just like emotionally and mentally, like he has it together. Like he has beyond training, like he just is really good in all his relationships. He is a hard worker in every avenue. He's very business driven like myself. So we I can say this, he inspires the heck out of me to like do better every day. And hopefully I can do the same for him. And just like friendships and relationships that push each other to be better are always ones you want to hold on to tight and fight for. So being kind of in this region with him has been a dream come true because, I would fly out to Utah and he would fly to Seattle to come visit each other. And that wouldn't be as often as we liked. So now it's like when he's 5-minute car drive away, it's like super convenient. And just being in the gym with him has been a blessing too, along with the other teammates who we all bring something a little different to the table.
So I think, one of the things about the Brute Crew, I think that maybe the public doesn't quite know about as much. And you can see my buddy Daniel just sneaking up under here. Yeah,
sneaky boy.
He's my Persian counterpart. I'm always curious about Matt Torres as a coach, right? Because you hear about all these, hear about all these camps, all of these like super groups that are forming, and we're starting to get a little bit more notoriety on the Brute Crew down in Naples. But what is it about Matt that makes him a good coach and that has brought all of you guys together where you're at in Florida?
Yeah, there's a lot of things, but I'd say the main thing is the personal connection he has with each of us and the trust he's built with each of us individually was what got us down here. Because no one can just say, hey, I want you to move 3,000 miles away from home. Like there's very few people that I would move that far for, but Matt's one of the guys. Like I've been working with him for almost 4 years now, and he's built up a trust and helped me get to where I am today. And I believe that if I worked with other coaches, I would not have near the success I have. He's very personable. He makes effort to understand things outside of the gym and make that connection, make sure everything is going right outside of the gym because that affects how we are inside of the gym. And most of all, his like intelligence with sports exercise, like in exercise science, he knows exactly what we need to do in the gym. He knows how we're feeling just based off when we walk in, how we warm up. Like being here allows him to make adjustments on the fly rather than like, hey, I have to text him and tell him I'm not feeling great and this and this is not going right. So having him there in person was a no-brainer for all of us who moved here because it's just that quick answer, a more efficient training, and just getting more out of each and every session. Yeah,
no doubt. No, I've heard good things behind the scenes. I've gotten to meet him on occasion briefly, but it's just always nice to showcase the people that helps build, athletes, especially with the notoriety of some of these big camps that are coming by. But we are, season's underway. 22.1's gone. First off, I got to ask, I noticed you got some racing stripes over here.
Oh yeah.
What is that a special open edition or are we going to see more of that?
So, I don't know exactly what to call these, but I had a couple of my like best friends back at home in Seattle. They would do the same thing before their big baseball tournaments. And I was like, you know what? That looks kind of sick. I'm going to do this before Waterpalooza. I did it before Waterpalooza. And I called them like the speed lines. Like they make me go fast, less hair, like more aerodynamic, whatever. And so, you know what? I'm like, before every competition, like I'm going to just go to the local barber here and get some speed stripes, like, it's cheap. Why not? Like it's signature. It's like Daniel Brandon doing her hair purple or blue or whatever color. Like I got the speed stripes.
Yeah.
And a couple weeks ago, I showed up to the gym in all orange. And so I'm trying to do like these Saturdays where I just show up in wacky outfits and I just keep it loose, keep it fun. Cause like with any job or anything like that, if you take it too serious, you're going to burn out. So just finding little things to enjoy,
Totally.
Sean Sweeney in his cowboy hat. That was pretty sick.
Yep. I love it. I got to say, I respect it. Anybody that can rock the racing stripes, the speed stripes, I love them.
Thanks, brother.
And so 22.1 came out. Have you done it yet? What were your initial feedback and how did you feel if you've been able to test it so far?
Yeah, we all knocked it out. So it's Saturday afternoon when we're recording this out right now. We knocked it out Friday morning. Me, Phil, and Emma all went in a heat. I took second out of 3 in that heat. Emma crushed me. Saying this now, I think she's going to put up the number 1 or number 2 score in this. And then me and homeboy Dallin Pepper tied on this. And we were actually just texting Taylor Self and Jason, who trained together, Jason Hopper.
Yeah.
And they tied as well. So it seems like they're like best friends too. So it's funny, like best friends who train together guest tie workouts, and me and Dallin tied a workout last week that we did against each other too. So it's really funny. Like we're just hitting all these same things. And I gave Dallin crap because I'm like, you went after me, you knew my score and you still tied me. But
that's true. Well. That's true. You went first. You didn't have his score to work off of.
Exactly.
I'll give you the tiebreaker on that one.
Hey, thank you. But it went well. It was a foot pump. I've never had a workout that made my feet so sore. And my girlfriend, she just did the open for the first time. She goes, do your feet always feel like that in the open? I'm like, never felt that way before. But we did it at our new like home box, CrossFit Naples.
Yeah.
And we're actually 1 week out from having the Brute Strength Gym, which is right next to CrossFit Naples in development. We all shipped our equipment out here. We got a new equipment sponsor for the gym. And so our new gym is like almost done being built, which is super exciting.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
That sounds fantastic. But yeah, man. So now that the season's underway, we got one workout in. You tied Dallin. What would you say, having a year under your belt with semifinals, a strong performance at Waterpalooza, what would you say are some of the goals that at the end of the year you would be happy checking off?
For sure. This year, going all in on myself and saying, why not me? And I want to be at the games. So my first year being at the games, I haven't realistically set what I want to do at the games yet, but I know like I want to be in that top cut and have a full competition weekend and get the full thing under my belt. And, so I relate it to Fikowski, right? He always has trouble making it to the games, but he's the type of athlete who gets his money shots at the games because he's a runner, swimmer, rower, like he does well there. So I know that I'm the exact same way. So figuring out how can I train best to be my peak self at semifinals so I can get one of those top 5 spots. And I know that with my renewed sense of confidence and just like my composure this year and the sacrifice I've made to move here for the sport, that I know it's within the books as long as I keep training and stay healthy. And, so being at the games is my goal right now.
Yeah. Love to hear it, man. Love hearing you put that out there into the universe as a fellow big guy, 6+, over 6 feet, over 200 pounds. I'm always rooting for you. I really appreciate you taking the time, man. Hopefully get to catch up soon and see you down the road at one of these semifinals. 100%,
Tommy. I appreciate you having me. And, big guys rule. Any other big dude out there listening to this, don't give up hope.
Oh, man. I love it. Best of luck the rest of the way, man. And in the open, we'll catch up soon.
Thank you so much, Tommy. Appreciate it.